Tuesday, May 6th, 1992. I'm watching the afternoon rush hour along Burlington Northern Chicago-Aurora racetrack in Downers Grove. There was a time this was a short trip, but today I've returned from Seattle, where I've been living the past few years, to say goodbye to some old friends. Green signals are lit over the center and westbound tracks. 2 headlights are visible in the east. The train on the center track is quickly getting closer. An express with a sleek green E9 pounds through, horn blaring to warn of its high-speed approach. As the E9 and train race into the sun, the local train glides into a stop. It has a new F40 PHM, imaginatively nicknamed Winnebago to its sort of resembling one. The sliding coach doors open and commuters pour out. I examine the new face. It will take some getting used to. The commuters clear the area and I pace the platform, waiting for the next train, and feeling remorse. I have grown fond of these E's over the years. I get more trains before the sunlight is lost, including a visit from Amtrak's Illinois Zephyr to Quincy and a few freights. Sadly, many more of the new F40s invading what used to be an all-E-unit show. Back in the 70s, when old enough to make it around on my own, the commuter fleet of BNEs had all been rebuilt and wearing green, well into the second half of their lives. All 25 were rebuilt in the early 70s from Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy E8s and E9s like this one in my dad's photo from 1965. Back then, a trip from my home in Skokie to the west suburbs would take almost as long as my flight this morning from Seattle. Years away from having a driver's license, and because travel by fast, easy commuter trains was out of my price range, all my train watching had to be done by bicycle, bus, or CTA trains. Trips then to the BN racetrack were not to see the E's. I was looking for freights with pre-merger or bicentennial paint schemes. Commuter trains were mundane. The BNs especially so. Almost all the area commuter trains had E or F units in the 70s. To the north, the Chicago and Northwestern ran a tremendous fleet of green and yellow, each unit just a little bit different. Northwest Suburban Mass Transit F40Cs had taken over most trains on the Milwaukee Road in 1973, but many yellow E's still ran on the North Line. The Illinois Central Gulf still ran 1 train a day from Joliet, still in Gulf Mobile and Ohio colors years after the merger. E's were also common on many Amtrak trains. My favorites, and the first to go, were on the Rock Island. Their colorful and delightfully decrepit fleet included the last E6 and E7s, including an E7B, in service anywhere. By the mid-80s, all the E and F units were gone, with the exception of the 25 Burlington Northern E9s and a few former Chicago and Northwestern E8s painted in Regional Transportation Authority colors. EMD F40 PHs, first delivered in October 1977, replaced the aging fleet. 1989 saw the ex-Northwestern E's pulled from regular service, although they hung around for a while as extra power, even making it into Metra's paint scheme. Metra ran a farewell to the E's excursion for the National Railway Historical Society on October 28, 1989. In 1993, during Mississippi River flooding, they were used for Amtrak reroutes over the Chicago and Northwestern because they were equipped with the necessary cab signals. The late 80s found me spending a lot of time along the Burlington racetrack. Some of my favorite spots for the afternoon rush were at the west end of Cicero Yard at Laverne, the picturesque Highlands in Hinsdale, and of course, Downers Grove. Years earlier, I began a tradition while attending the University of Illinois Circle campus. I'd grab a Polish sausage from Jim's on Maxwell Street and sit and eat and study at one of the many train-watching spots south of the Loop. Late 80s, I gravitated to eating my Polish at 16th and Canal to watch the BNEs speed around the famous 16th Street curve. By 1990, the Burlington Northern E's were the last anywhere in regular service. They were not mundane anymore. Now, join me as I take you through the whole day on May 7th, 1992. starting south of the loop on the abandoned Baltimore and Ohio bridge that runs parallel to the St. Charles airline. This is that bridge as viewed from the dome on the departing Amtrak Capital Limited a month before. And here is a view from up top in March 1988. And now the view on May 7, 1992. Inbound morning rush hour suburban trains with new F40 PHM Winnebagos and E's are pushing their trains by the Metra shops, which I still call the Zephyr Pit, its nickname from the old CB&Q days. At least half the fleet of E's are lined up, retired from service and awaiting disposition. Next, moving the short distance to Roosevelt Road, where 3 trains are waiting to get into the yard to wait for the evening rush hour. Amtrak train number 311, the Loop, emerges for a run to Springfield. This was a short-lived train, only being in the schedule from 1986 to 1996. Seeing the E's sadly sidelined like this drives home the reality that it is the end of an era. In addition to other Metra and Amtrak trains, there are about 20 Burlington Northern suburban trains arriving between 7 and 9 a.m., and the action is non-stop. The big hole behind used to be the Railway Express Agency building. It is now filled by a shopping center. On the left, a BNE leads its train out of the wash on the way to the yard. On the right, the Amtrak SW1 began life in 1949 on the New York Central. After about 20 minutes here at Roosevelt Road, I moved toward Union Station to Polk Street. Construction of a new post office building built here over the tracks will start the following year. The Harrison Street Tower would be enclosed within the new building and would continue to be active until 1999. The Amtrak International departs for Toronto. Shortly after, the Capital Limited backs in following its journey from Washington, D.C. Then, over to 16th Street Tower to catch a Metra Operation Lifesaver special with 3 F40s go south on the Rock Island. And then around the corner to catch the inbound City of New Orleans. The train is heading to Alton Junction at 21st Street, where it will reverse direction and back into Union Station. After lunch, it's west along the Burlington Northern racetrack. First stop, Highlands and Hinsdale for 2 trains. An outbound F40 PHM Suburban followed by a BN SD40-2 and a leased former Penn Central GP38 with a freight. Moving to Riverside for 1, the westbound Amtrak California Zephyr. Then to Berwyn for the rest of the day, just before the suburban rush heats up. First train is a Southern Pacific run-through with Rio Grande GP40-2s leading out of BN Cicero Yard. Behind waits another to follow. In a hurry to get out of the way of the impending fleet of suburban trains, the following freight meets an inbound intermodal heading into the yard. The rush begins with an outbound powered by a new F40 PHM. Shortly followed by an inbound with another. Then the show really starts with an outbound local with E9 9916. Just as it clears, an express on the center track pounds through with 2 E9s led by 9908 and 9902. Time to walk to the west end of the Berwyn platform before another express clips by with E9 9907. The next 3 have mundane F40 PHMs. Next, a local with an F40 PHM pulls up to a stop just as E9 9900 breezes past with another express. Then 9916 shows up a second time, this time inbound to grab another load of passengers downtown. An eastbound Southern Pacific run-through sneaks in amid all the passenger trains, and 9913 passes with an express on the center track. A short time later, a local pulls in, and as the commuters pour out, this little guy, who I assume is waiting for Dad and is not here for railfan indoctrination, although may still be a side effect, is getting a whole lot of attention. An outbound express with an F40 PHM and then an inbound train slowly pulls in and dwells a while as the SP freight ahead has stopped with its tail end still on the main. E9 9921 arrives while the inbound waits. Some of these inbounds are empty of passengers being moves to get equipment downtown for another outbound run. Another inbound and then a following inbound meets an outbound express. 9916 shows up for the third time this afternoon. I didn't realize it until I was putting this together that this is the last photo of BNE in regular service that I will ever take. I guess I can forgive that it blocked a shot of the Illinois Zephyr. The rush hour is winding down, so the high revenue freights have to start running again. They send out a westbound. A little while later, an F40 PHM shows up with a local. And then, the only standard non-Winnebago F40 PH, number 180, pushes an inbound into the depot and it's time to pack up. Work obligation requires me to fly back home to Seattle in the morning. In 2021, Berwyn looks the same, and the F40 PHMs are turning 30 years old. The fleet has recently been rebuilt and is well into the second half of their lives. Is this when they become not mundane anymore? Many of the retired BNE units were saved from the scrapper's torch, finding their way to museums and tourist railways. Several were used by Class 1 railroads for business train duty. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.
What you're doing, you're recording history. This is the last of the E units. Recording.
Freezing. Can't feel my feet.